Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast. I am your host, Andrew, and all three of us are back as normal tonight. We've got Jason and Joe. Guys, how are you doing? Jason with the strange Frank and Jersey combination tonight with the Dodgers hat on and the Orioles jersey. Man, like I said before we went on, orange and blue, it works for Hershey High School, but man, I don't know about this one.
Yeah, I mean, I figured, we're previewing the NL West tonight, so have the Dodgers hat on. My dad's a big Dodger fan. And we're also going to start with some Hall of Fame stuff. So I pulled out the Ripken Cooperstown collection jersey. So have everything covered for tonight, as gaudy as it may be.
And boy, is it. Joe, how you doing tonight?
Hanging in there, man. Hanging in there. The Hoosiers are on a 5-game winning streak, so I'm happy about that.
Nice.
So can't complain.
Let me guess, it's due to end when they come back to Happy Valley. Is that right?
Yes.
Are they playing Division 2 or 3 schools that they're on that winning streak? Or
No, they're not.
No, man, it's Big Ten.
They're just finally playing better. That's all.
Crazy how that works. You don't suck and you win games. Who would have thought?
Yeah, they've got a trap game against Maryland tomorrow, and then they've got Purdue, the big game, the big rivalry next Saturday. So
yeah, man, Purdue's been tough this year. I know
top team in the nation right now.
Yeah, they obliterated Penn State earlier this year, and I fully expect that to happen again on the rematch in the other arena. So, yeah, good luck. You're gonna need it.
Pretty sure they're currently a unanimous number 1 this week.
they are.
Yeah, they might be. I wouldn't be surprised.
When your 7'4" center scores 38 against Michigan State, yeah, you're unanimous number 1.
Ouch! Oh, that's brutal. Hey, it looks like Ronnie's already in on the comments. How's it going, Ronnie?
Hey, Ron.
All right. So, Joe, what are you drinking tonight?
Evan Williams and Pepsi this time. Switching it up from the Mountain Dew. Obviously, been a little wired, post-op, so I need to mellow out a little.
Fair enough. Jason, what do you got tonight?
So tonight I'm going with a beer that I got. Actually, you and I traded a couple beers with each other. So I'm going with the Fegley's Brewing Company. Fegley's Brew Works. The Blueberry Belch.
Yeah, that one was really good. You'll like
that. It's tasty. It's really good.
I've got 2 tonight. The first one I'll be drinking is from a brewery Jason and I happen to love, Cape May Brewing, that we always enjoy indulging in when we go down the shore. This is the Apple Bomb. It's a fruit beer. Very nice, kind of cidery, but not too not too crazy like that. And then from New Trail, later, I have the Banana Foster Ice Cream Stout. Our friend Aaron works at New Trail. He is a regional salesman, and this comes highly recommended by him. So really excited to try this as soon as I finish up the apple beer. All right, so Ronnie's chilling. This diet my wife got me on is killing me. Hey, man, the fact that you've made it through a diet through almost an entire month of the new year, that's pretty impressive, because most people would have given up about 27 days ago. So good job, man.
Assuming it started in January. It started at the beginning of January.
That's fair. All right, so let's get into it, guys. Jason, take it away with the Hall of Fame. I'll let you start it off.
Yeah, so last week we had the Hall of Fame elections, and we have one player elected in. I know the Crime Dog already got in with the committee, but Scott Rolen, he gets elected to the Hall of Fame on his 6th ballot. He received 76.3% of the vote. He made it in by 5 votes. He played for 17 seasons, 1996 to 2012, primarily with the Phillies and the Cardinals. He then spent some time with the Blue Jays and the Reds. He did win a World Series with the Cards in 2006. A lot of people, I think, kind of forget that he started out with the Phillies. They remember a lot of stuff of his career being with the Cardinals, but he did win the Rookie of the Year with the Phillies. He is very often called the best defensive third baseman of his era. He has 8 Gold Gloves, which is the 4th all-time among third basemen. He's a 7-time All-Star. He slashed 281, 364, 490, had 2,077 hits, 316 home runs. and 1,287 runs batted in. He is one of 35 hitters all time with at least 2,000 hits, 300 home runs, and 500 doubles. He is the first third baseman to be elected since Chipper Jones got into the Hall in 2018. So I know, Andrew, you remember that one.
Yeah, I didn't realize it had been that long since a third baseman had been elected. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I believe we even had a year or two where nobody even got in. So
yeah, that's true.
He does have a lifetime WAR of 70.1, 52.8 on the offense, and an astonishing 21.2 on the defense. He is 10th all-time on third baseman, behind 9 Hall of Famers and Adrian Beltre, who becomes eligible next year.
Yeah.
And I know we may talk about this in a little bit here, but I'm pretty sure Adrian Beltre is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So
he should be. Yeah.
But yeah, so Scott Rolen did have the lowest first ballot percentage of any Hall of Fame member. His first year of eligibility, he clocked in at 10.2%. To give you an idea, other players that were elected into the Hall when Scott Rolen came onto the ballot, you have Chipper Jones, Vladimir Guerrero, Jim Thome, and Trevor Hoffman. You also had Edgar Martinez, Mike Mussina, and Larry Walker. They were on the ballot, and they eventually all got in. So congratulations to Scott Rolen. I'm really going to be interested to see what happens with the cap on his plaque. It's possible he goes in as a Cardinal because he did have a lot of really good numbers with the Cards. It's possible that there's even a split cap here with the Phillies and the Cards. I could see either happening. He did leave Philadelphia on not so good terms, but Phillies have said that they're going to honor him this coming summer. So I'll be interested to see what kind of reception he gets there. I'm sure it'll be pretty good. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes in, if he goes in as a Cardinal or as kind of a split.
That's a really interesting question. I actually initially thought split. Jason, in the group chat, you actually thought Cardinals initially. Joe, I think you said Cardinals as well. It's, we don't often have a guy that put up pretty comparable numbers in both destinations, because I did pull up the stat line between the two, and it's pretty close.
Yeah.
It's not often you have a guy that is honestly legitimate, well split between two. I mean, the last guy that went into the Hall that I can think of that had a legitimate case for the split cap, I think, is probably Greg Maddux when he went in with the Braves and the Cubs. It's been a while since I can think of anybody else who really, I think, makes a good argument for the split cap. But, Scott Rolen, hands down. The funny thing is, and I mentioned this in our group chat as well, I was looking at a lot of Phillies boards and Phillies Twitter and things like that. A lot of the Phillies fans are actually like, what in the hell is this bum doing in the Hall of Fame? And I'm like, are you not looking at his defensive prowess? The dude was one of the smoothest third basemen you ever saw, especially for a big guy. Wasn't he like 6'2", 6'4"?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big guy. He moved very well. Good arm. Now, I don't think he had the best arm of a third baseman of that era. I would give that to Ken Caminiti without a question. Caminiti had a freaking cannon. But the fact, I'm glad to see Rolen get in. He was a guy that no matter whether he was with the Phillies or the Cardinals, he always gave Atlanta fits when he played them. And he was guaranteed to stop at least one screaming line drive down that line a game and rob a double or possibly a triple. So absolutely a Hall of Famer in my book. No question.
I mean, and I just looked up. He was 6'4". He is 6'4", he is 6'4". So, I mean, tall guy, he can snag those line drives. And I was a little surprised to see some of the Phillies fans who were surprised or upset that he was getting into the Hall. He's one of the third basemen to not only have ever played the game, but he's one of the best third basemen that the Phillies have ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, he's right there behind Mike Schmidt as far as defensive ability. So I think what you're going to see here, he's not getting in based on his offense. I mean, his batting average isn't really there. but he's getting it. You need to show that there's a whole other side to this sport, which is that defense. And I think this is going to open up the door for quite a few more players who maybe didn't have the best offensive stats, but they were incredible on defense. From a personal standpoint, I feel like that this opens the door up for Jimmy Rollins and, even Chase Utley. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say, like you said, it opens the door for Utley. It makes you kind of curious as to, who else might get in that, again, doesn't scream offensively, but does a great job defensively. Honestly, you almost have to look at it and go, well, who else are they going to vote for at this point? Because they're not voting for all the steroid era guys anymore. They're not on the ballot anymore, I don't think. A good chunk of them aren't, at least.
Yeah, a lot of them ended up falling off of the ballot. Last year was the last year for Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens. Excuse me. So, yeah, Scott Rolen is absolutely a Hall of Famer, and I'm very excited that he got in. And I think it's good he got in this year. I know he just scraped by, but the classes that are coming up are going to be loaded.
Yeah, you look at I think next year's list. I think Beltre is probably the most dead ringer. Probably maybe Utley gets lucky and gets enough on the first ballot, but those are the two on next year's list that really stick out to me. David Wright is a Hall of Famer when it comes to being a Met, but I don't see him getting into the Major League Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. And who really knows about Big Sexy? Probably not. But Utley and Beltre of that five, maybe Mauer are the only three that get in off of that new list from next year for sure.
Yeah, I think Mauer will eventually get in. I think he's one of the best defensive catchers of all time too. So, I think from the names that are joining next year, our notable names here are Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, Chase Utley, David Wright, and the big sexy Bartolo Colon. Out of that number, I think Adrian Beltre and Joe Mauer are shoo-ins. Mauer, not right away. I think it'll take a few years for him to get there. Beltre, I think, will absolutely be a first ballot. And I think Utley, with his defense and his offensive numbers, especially from a second base standpoint, may be enough to get him in there.
My question with Utley is, was his peak too short because of injuries? That might hurt him.
I think that does have the potential to hurt him. We'll just have to wait and see. Andrew, we didn't quite get to talk about yet the guys that fell off the list. We did talk about Rolen being the Hall of Famer in our opinions, in our minds, and we just talked about those notable names here.
Man, the guys that fell off, it was a brutal cut list this year. A ton of guys didn't get votes, and several only got one vote. Most of those newcomers that we had all predicted back in December when the list was released that would not go any further, every single one of them, we nailed the prediction for who was not going to move on. I would like to note that I was correct, though. Torrey Hunter did stay on. Francisco Rodriguez did stay on, although Hunter, he is barely clinging, 6.9% of the vote. Some of the other guys, Helton, he should get in one of these years. He's up to 72.2. Wagner, I'm really encouraged to see up to 68.1, although I think he only has 2 ballots left, so I know he's getting close. Andrew Jones, again, positive progress forward to 58.1, best defensive center fielder of all time. Gary Sheffield, he's an interesting one, 55%, but he does have the he does have the possibility of steroids, around. So who knows whether he'll be able to get over that hump. Beltran had a very good start, 46.5%. He'll probably get in at some point, I would think, if that was ballot 1. Jeff Kent, he is done now off the ballots. This was his final year, and he ended at 46.5. So, of course, a committee could put him in down the road, similar to the crime dog. But as for voting, Jeff Kent is done. Alex Rodriguez, 35.7, Manny, 33.2. I don't think those guys have really moved much the last couple of years. I don't have the balloting results for the last few, but I feel like that's roughly where they've been. So they're probably going to continue to stay around there, I would think. And, we mentioned this before. I think I brought it up. This was the year Scott Rolen needed to get in because there's a lot of big names coming up. Beltray, Maurer, Utley coming on. Even David Wright. David Wright, Chase Utley. It's the same thing. Great guys in their peak. They were both phenomenal players, but their peak was very short, cut by injuries. So we'll have to see how that. And David, I know David Wright had a lot of other stuff going on besides just injuries. And I know, in the next couple of years, there's
and
I know Ichiro's coming up among others. So get in now.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Joe and I were saying while you had stepped away, was that this was the year for Rolen to make it. I did pull up some of the rest of the ballot for this this past cycle here. Todd Helton, this was his 5th ballot, and I think you're going to see him get in next year. I think there's decent potential for Billy Wagner to make it in next year. If he does have 2 years left, he has next year and the following year. So if he does get in next year, I think he may get that edge in his final ballot. Andrew Jones, this was his sixth year on the ballot. So he had a really big jump this year. I think you're looking at him gaining within the next couple years. So lots of potential here for these different players. And of note, Carlos Beltran he really had a good showing, even with the cheating scandals that he's been a part of.
Yeah. So, we'll have to see how that rolls. It's funny, though, Jason, we went, 6 years or 5 years in between getting third baseman in. We're going to get another one in next year. We should get another one in next year with Beltray, who, let's face it, was a better defender than Scott Rolen. So, if we're going to go ups on the defense, Beltray should absolutely be in there. He was also very, very smooth moving at third base. So, it's it's a good time to be a third baseman entering the hall. That's for sure. Good to see. That was a position I always liked to play, but was never very good at playing. So I probably got in there for about 4 innings a season in Little League. I was usually in the outfield or pitching. All right. So, guys, anything else that you want to bring up for the Hall of Fame? You guys got it? All right. Yeah, thanks for grabbing that while I stepped out. All right. So let's move on to the NL West. The NL West, definitely going to be a good division at the very top next year. I think we can all agree on that. The middle is probably going to be about average, and the basement will probably still be the basement. So starting in the basement from this past season, we have the Rockies. They went 68-94, 5th in the West. They dropped 6 wins from 2021. Looking at the depth chart, catching, you've got Elias Diaz and Brian Serfin. At first base, you've got CJ Cron. Second base, Brendan Rodgers. Third base, Ryan McMahon. Shortstop, Ezekiel Tovar. In the outfield, Chris Bryant, Randall Grichuk, and Michael Toglia. I probably should put the 4th outfielder in there because, let's face it, KB is never guaranteed to play that many games a year. DH Charlie Blackmon. Starting pitching, Kyle Freeland, Herman Marquez, Antonio Santazella, Ryan Feltner, Austin Gomberg. Closing is Daniel Barden. The rest of the bullpen is Pierce Johnson, Brent Suter, Denelson LeMay, Jake Bird, Justin Lawrence. They did bring Jose Urena back, 1 year plus a club option for 24. Not a lot of moves for the Rockies, as can well be expected. They rarely make big splashes, bunch of waivers pickups. They did pick up Pierce Johnson, 1 year, $5 million, Matt Carcidi for 1 year. They made a few minor trades, Nolan Jones, Jeff Criswell, Nick Garcia. Now, that being said, they didn't have a ton of huge losses. I would say their biggest loss is probably Jose Iglesias, their shortstop from last year. But, the Rockies, let's face it, this was a team that wasn't really expected to make a lot of noise in the West, especially with San Diego and LA. And I don't think they're going to make a lot of noise in the West this upcoming season, again, with San Diego and LA. And also Arizona's loaded up a bit. And who knows, I don't think San Francisco's excuse me, I don't think San Francisco is going to be quite as good. So I'm going to put the Rockies probably right around where they were this past season. They were at 68 wins. So I'm going to predict the Rockies to drop just 2 to 66, but I don't think they're going to hit the 100 loss mark. But I'm going to keep them at 5th in the NL West. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I really don't think that they did anything to massively improve here. KB being what KB is. I mean, the best thing about their pitching staff is Freeland Marquez and Daniel Bard, the closer. Everything else is kind of a wild card, really. I mean, they had some of those guys. Senzatella did really well off and on, but they just don't have enough to make up for what they don't have. You know what I mean? They just didn't make any major improvements.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, the holes that they have are just too many. I think what you're going to see here, at some point, they're probably going to trade some of their players, try to load up on prospects. I mean, really, Andrew, you said they don't make big splashes. They did make a big splash last year with KB, getting Chris Bryant in there, although he didn't really play much for him last year. So a win and a loss there. I know, right? So previous season was kind of about where we would figure that they would be. I think maybe we had them winning a few more games with Chris Bryant in there. But for this next year, there's too many gaps. The only benefit and good thing that they have going for them is the fact that the schedule changes and they don't play as many games against the top of their division. And even against the Diamondbacks, I think that the Diamondbacks would end up beating the Rockies pretty well. So I'm still going to take them. I'm going to say that they're going to have 100 losses. I'm going to go 62 wins and 100 losses.
So what was your win prediction?
I didn't make one, but I would say somewhere probably around. We'll go 65. Like you said, there's too many holes. They may get lucky with not having as many games against the top of the division, but there's too many holes to make up the difference whoever they play.
Yeah. Interesting question from your wife, Jason. Related to San Francisco, have they ever had a mid-game earthquake? I don't know about mid-game, but we had an entire World Series have major issues between San Francisco and Oakland back in, was it 88? When the series got postponed briefly because of that big earthquake that struck the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah, that was actually the World Series in 1989. So
89, off by a year. Damn.
Yeah, so the Giants were actually in that. So technically, yes, the Giants did have a game that caused severe damage to the stadiums, and it actually caused. I'm trying to see if there's any kind of delay here.
Well played, Karen. I like the hard hitting, but ching baseball questions. Well played.
But yeah, so I'm trying to see if there was any other times that they had an earthquake. I know it was definitely the World Series in San Fran in '89.
I would have to think it's even minor ones probably have happened because California is just so seismically active, with the state being half on and half off the San Andreas fault line. So, yeah, probably at some point. That said, they build buildings out there to deal with that. So I doubt it would have caused much, if any, delay outside of the World Series game where that one was major.
And it was actually during Game 3, it looks. So let's see what else we can find out.
There's a really good, ESPN has a really good 30 for 30 about that series that I watched way while back. Definitely.
Your manager for the Oakland Athletics, who ended up sweeping that World Series, Tony La Russa.
Ugh. Poor Joe. We can't get away from this guy.
So the earthquake actually happened before the start of Game 3. Okay. It was roughly an hour before it started. It did cause damage to the upper deck. of Candlestick Park, and power was knocked out. The game was postponed out of concerns for the safety of everyone in the ballpark, as well as that loss of power. And the game resumed on October 27th, which was 10 days later.
Oh, there you go. All right, Karen, that was a great question. Thank you. All right, so Joe, let's move on to the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, so the Diamondbacks last year, 74-88 record, fourth in the NL West. Record change was plus 22 from 2021, so a big year for them. We saw them do a lot of interesting things during the year, so that was really interesting. That was fun to watch, except for when they played the Phillies. So the depth chart for them at catcher Carson Kelly, Gabriel Moreno, first base Christian Walker, second base Ketel Marte, who really had a breakout year, I think, last year. Josh Rojas at third, Geraldo Perdomo at short, Lourdes Gurriel in the outfield, along with Corbin Carroll and Jake McCarthy, Pavin Smith at DH. The rotation for them, the top three are pretty impressive: Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, and Bumgarner. Dre Jameson is the 4, and Tommy Henry is the 5th starter for them. Mark Melancon in the bullpen for them. So along with the other folks they have, that's they've got some chances to do some things, I think, here. Didn't resign anybody that was a free agent. It looks like their new acquisitions were Evan Longoria, 1 year, $4 million. Cole Sussler via Miami from waivers, who they then signed to a 1-year deal. Miguel Castro, who's a pitcher, and Ali Sanchez, a catcher. They got him off of waivers from Pittsburgh. So, I mean, the free agent losses they lost pitcher Ian Kennedy, Zach Davies, no loss there. Reyes Maranta, Kanan Middleton, and infielder Jake Hager. Catcher Cooper Hummel was traded to Seattle, and Scott Randall, pitcher, was traded to Pittsburgh. Again, they had a pretty impressive year last year. It's hard to argue that they probably were the most improved club of the year, I would think, by numbers at least. And it feels like they're heading in the right direction for sure.
Definitely one of the two best improved clubs. The Orioles, I think, also could stake a pretty strong claim to that as well. But yeah, plus 22 swing and wins from year to year. That's freaking phenomenal. And especially doing that in the NL West, where you're playing so many games in the old schedule against the Dodgers and the Padres. That's very impressive. I will say that one thing I did notice about the Diamondbacks last year, they played up to their competition. They played well against the good teams. Jason, sorry to keep rubbing it in, but they play up to the Phillies.
Hey, we're National League champs. You can say whatever you need to.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's the last couple of years they've been like the Marlins of the West for you guys. I don't know what it is
for the division, really.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so I like this roster. They're not ready to challenge the Diamondbacks. They're not ready to challenge the Dodgers. They're not ready to challenge the Padres, but they're ready to start making waves, I think, towards that third wild card spot. I'm not saying that they're going to get it, because I think the East is so heavily stacked that you're going to have to be that the West number 2 is probably going to be East 2-3, West 2 for the foreseeable future for the wild card for the National League. I would be shocked if it's anything else, but I think the Diamondbacks are ready to start. Remember Seattle 2 years ago, as they were starting to make waves towards the playoffs and just fell short at the end of the year? That's kind of what I'm feeling like we're going to see out of the Diamondbacks this upcoming season. They've got a good base of young talent, that's for sure. And I like the pitching staff. I really do. I know Madison Bumgarner's getting old, but man, he's still a quality pitcher. I mean, he's not an ace anymore, of course, but as a number 3 guy, you could do a lot worse than Madison Bumgarner. Look at the Rockies' ragtag group of starting pitching, or everything Oakland had, from 2 weeks ago. You could do a lot worse at 3 than Madison Bumgarner. What do you think,
yeah,
Jason?
I would say so. I think adding some of the pieces they added, having Longoria come on, his leadership. Bumgarner is a leadership piece there, really, for that rotation. Regardless of what he does, he's a leadership piece for them. And I think I'm gonna say 78.
78. All right. What do you think, Jason?
So to touch on the amount of win increase from last year, the Orioles did have the best there. It looks at 31 wins. They had 100 losses in the prior season. So Orioles are definitely up there as far as that improvement goes. The thing with the Diamondbacks, they are very young. They have talent. It's a matter of getting the most out of that talent. I think, having Ketel Marte in there is fantastic. Perdomo is going to be good. Zach Gallen, I think, he can have Cy Young stuff. He has Cy Young potential. I like the moves that they made. One of the big things, I don't know if you mentioned this, Joe, but they got Kyle Lewis, an outfielder, young player from the Mariners. And I think he's going to be big for them. So I think the Diamondbacks overtake the Giants for third in the division this year. And I'm going to take them. I'm torn. I think I'm going to give them at least a 500 record. I'm going to say 81 to 83 wins.
Okay.
And again, here, you need to remember that the schedule is going to be a little different. So they're going to have not as many games against the top of that division.
Yeah, it's true. One other thing another move I liked that they made was going out and getting Evan Longoria. I mean, he's not going to be an everyday player for them, and that's fine, but he's a great flex utility guy in the infield who can cover, I believe, all 4 spots. So he can give these guys a day off. He can be a defensive replacement late, bat off the bench, whatever they need him to be. And he's, again, same with Bumgarner. He's a good veteran leadership presence in that clubhouse. I really like that move. And 1 year, $4 million. Yeah, that's a bargain for a guy like that. I'm going to put them at 82 wins. I'm going to split Jason's prediction. I think 82 wins is where they're going to be at. I do think they pass the Giants. I will agree with that, Jason. I think third place. All right. So speaking of the San Francisco Giants and the earthquakes, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah. So the Giants last year, they were 81-81. So right at the 500 mark, as only a Gabe Kapler team can do. And they got third in the AL West last year. So yeah, you can clearly tell I'm still bitter about those Kapler years. They
AL
lost.
West? NL West, you mean?
Whatever. I will show you this list. It says AL West on it, sir.
Ah, crap. My bad. I thought I changed all of those.
So yeah, so third in the NL West. Yeah, we know baseball. They did lose an extra 26 games this past year, so they did have a great year prior, winning over 100 games, but they fell off the edge of the earth this past year. For their depth here, they have at catcher Joey Bart and Austin Wynns, first base Wilmer Flores, second baseman Estrada, third baseman David Villar, shortstop Brandon Crawford, still a great shortstop overall. Outfield, they now have Michael Conforto, Mike Yastrzemski, and Mitch Haniger. They do have Jock with his pearls back at DH, and they do have their rotation here looks like it's going to be Logan Webb, Alex Cobb, Sean Manaea, Alex Wood, and Ross Stripling. For their pen, their closer is going to be Duvall, along with some other names there that don't really need to get into. Because again, I don't think the Giants are going to be. I think they're going to be worse this year. But some re-signed players, they only made one big splash here as far as re-signing their old roster and bringing back Jock Peterson at 1 year, $19.65 million. Some new acquisitions for them. They got pitchers Andrew Vasquez and Luis Ortiz. They got Ortiz from Philadelphia through waivers. They got Drew Strotman. Miguel Yahor. These names. They did get Mitch Haniger, which I thought was a pretty good signing for them. And then they also got Michael Conforto this offseason, which again is going to be good, and Sean Manea. So they are making some moves. They are getting some improvement, especially since they lost Carlos Rodon. They also lost Jose Alvarez, Brandon Belt, Shelby Miller. Already mentioned Carlos Rodon. They lost Evan Longoria to their rival. Well, not really rival, but within the division. And they also lost Tommy LaStella. So they didn't really get better, but they also didn't really get worse. I think they need some more offense in that lineup to really contend. So I think this next year you're going to see them, especially with the improvements that the Diamondbacks have made. I think you're going to see the Giants drop down to 4th in the division, and I'm going to take them slightly worse at 78 wins.
The Giants, man, it is. Talk about a team that thought they were going to hit cloud 9 with a certain shortstop, who they then said, you know what? I don't like what I'm seeing in this medical report. Get the hell out. And also, Scott Boras, you're an asshole. I think it's roughly how that conversation went. If I had to, if I had ears in the room, it's probably what it roughly sounded like. I mean, I really think they rebounded pretty well from that, to be honest. I feel like not signing that massive contract was a good thing. I like picking up Conforto. The opt-out only triggers if he gets 350 plate appearances, which honestly, he probably should get that as long as he stays healthy, I would think. Another sneaky under the radar signing I like that they made was Luke Jackson, one of Atlanta's former closer and one of their setup men from the night shift bullpen that won the World Series. He is coming off Tommy John, but they signed him 2 years, $9.5 million with a team option at $7 million for 2025. So, they know they're probably not going to get a ton out of him this year, although he might be ready to go by May or June because he had Tommy John during spring training last year. So they may get a little bit out of him this year. For a team that has a bullpen of, good God, who are these players outside of Doval? You need a guy like that. And Jackson is, the one thing we've noted from Tommy John surgery that didn't used to be the case is that guys are getting their velo back pretty quick or increasing it. So, and Luke Jackson was already a high velo guy who has an unfortunate fascination with the slider, which is good but hard to control, and for some reason forgets that it's a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. So I think that's a sneaky good pickup for the Giants. That said, it's not enough. It's not going to be enough to hang with the big guys, and I think the Diamondbacks did improve enough that they will jump ahead. I'm with you there, Jason. It's going to be another year where the Giants are going to lose wins. Now, to be fair, they had the largest win drop off of any team. Well, they had 111 wins the year before that. And there was no way in hell they were going to come close to sniffing that last year with that roster that they have. They need more pitching, though, particularly starting pitching. Losing Carlos Rodon hurts a lot. And, Rodon kept them in so many games this past year because of how good of a pitcher he is. So I'm going to drop all the way down to 70. I think I'm going to drop way down 74 wins for me. What do you think, Joe?
I think they're going to stay in this 3 spot. And I think as much as it hurts losing Rodon, I think with Stripling and Manea, you make up for that at least a little bit. Jock, I'm a believer in the dude. Jock is something special. So I think from a clubhouse standpoint, he makes a difference. And offensively, he still makes a difference. That Conforto move is could be sneaky good if he comes back to what he used to be. But losing Brandon Belt really hurts, I think, too, for them. But I think they made enough moves to stay 3rd in that division. I'm going to give them 83.
83. All right. A little more optimistic. All right. All right, so let's move on. Joe, how about the Padres?
Yeah, so last year, 89 and 73, second in the NL West. How they got back to second, it was just like they looked really bad at one point during the year. So to get all the way back to second was weird. How they got to the playoffs just still boggles my mind. In the NL West, they're wild card 2, eliminated by the Phillies in the NLDS.
NLCS.
CS,
NLCS,
yes. My bad.
yes,
Thank
my
you.
bad. The record change for them plus 10 from year to year. Depth chart wise, Austin Nola, Jake Cronenworth, Hassan Kim, Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, the new acquisition. Outfielders Tatis, Grisham, Juan Soto, and Jose Azocar, and they've got Matt Carpenter at DH. Probably one of the better rotations in the division. Musgrove, Darvish, Snell. Lugo, I guess he's a starter / long reliever probably. Who knows where he'll end up. But that top three of that rotation is pretty spectacular, I think. Having Josh Hader, see if he has a rebound year in the bullpen there. They re-signed Nick Martinez, a 1-year, $10 million deal. They re-signed Robert Suarez in the bullpen, 5 years, $46 million. That was their big pitching spend, I think.
I'm fine with them re-signing him.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured you would be. I
don't think Bryce Harper will get to face him ever again in the postseason, but
or maybe the next time, maybe he strikes Bryce out. Who knows? That's baseball, man.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, obviously, their other acquisitions they made. Bogaerts, we talked about, 11 years, 280 is just nuts. Some of these deals and the money was thrown around this winter just boggles your mind. Matt Carpenter, again, a good sneaky pickup for them. Seth Lugo is a innings eater, I think, so he can make a difference for them in the bullpen. Nelson Cruz at DH too. I mean, they made some good moves. I don't think losing Josh Bell is that big of a loss for them. I don't think Clevenger is that big of a loss for them. I thought they might have kept Drury, but they made so much, spending at some of these other big name guys that you couldn't keep all these people. But they lost a couple of good pieces. I think the tough thing about the Padres is Fernando Tatis has to prove that he can be an intelligent person when he comes back and not screw it up and be the Fernando Tatis Jr. that we expect him to be. To me, that's the wild card with this team.
Yeah, absolutely. Who knows what they're going to get out of Tatis? Who knows what the mindset's going to be? I hope, for his sake, I hope it's a good one. When he's on, he's a hell of a player to watch. But yeah, he's got a lot of rebuilding to do with that organization. I was not surprised to see Josh Bell say peace out. He did not perform well once being moved over after the trade. I did not understand signing Nelson Cruz. I mean, I know it's 1 year, $1 million. It's no big deal. In the grand scheme of this massive payroll they're dumping money into especially after that Bogaerts deal. 1 year, $1 million is nothing. But you already grabbed Matt Carpenter. Why do you need Nelson Cruz too? You have too many DHs. Like you're not the problem the Phillies had last year, where you have like 12 DHs, but you have to find spaces for them in the outfield. Why are you signing Cruz? Can't play anywhere anymore. He's got to be your DH. He maybe can play first base, but he really can't play anywhere in the field. Carpenter can still play a little bit of outfield, but really, if Carpenter's out in the field, other than you're giving some guys a day off, that's a problem.
I think Nelson Cruz is there mainly for depth with the DH position. Crazy
to say.
with Matt Carpenter, who knows what his health is going to be like, because he's getting up there in years, and even
Cruz is older than Carpenter is, dude. He's 41 or 42.
But still, the body's breaking down for both of them, so you have kind of a split there. But the other thing here is too, you don't know what you're going to get from Fernando Tatis Jr. So you have potential for, if he doesn't perform in the outfield, he might have to move down to DH, or what happens if he needs some kind of stint in the minors? You're going to need to then move potentially Carpenter to the outfield and have Cruz be your DH. So I think Cruz is mainly there just to give them some kind of fallback.
Azekar is right now slated to be their fourth outfielder, but will be the third outfielder while Tatis is suspended.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's a weird one to me.
For me, they're basically like the Mets as far as I'm concerned. They have to prove that they can actually win and not just spend the money.
Yeah.
Which they finally did last year after they fell off in the previous season. 2021, they had that, what was it, like 40 to 60 win second half pace. Yeah. Like they were terrible. So, on paper, as you look at this lineup, the Padres are good. The Padres have the potential to be great. I think they get a wild card spot. I don't know that they overtake the Dodgers. I think it's until the Dodgers lose a division for the first time in however many years, it's going to be the Dodgers division. The safe bet.
The Dodgers are only on a 1-year winning streak for the division. The Giants took it 2 years ago.
That's right. Giants took it 2 years ago. But still, the Dodgers are, I think, still the top of the division here. So I'm going to say that the Padres get second in the division. I think that they do get one of the wild card spots. I think they're going to have, I'll take 92 wins.
92. Okay. 92 plus the wild card. All right. You said second place, which I would agree with. Yeah, they definitely have the pitching. No, I don't think we can doubt that. Hader to anchor the pen. And Musgrove, Darvish, Snell. That's a phenomenal 1, 2, 3. Honestly, I like their 1, 2, 3 better than I like LA's 1, 2, 3. But I like LA's 4, 5 better than I like San Diego's 4, 5. I'm gonna go. What were they at 89 last year? I'm gonna go 91. 91 second place in the wild card. What do you think, Joe?
I'd say at least, I'm thinking probably I'm gonna say 94.
Ooh, okay.
And I'm gonna say that division race goes down to the last week of September.
That would not surprise me.
So I think they're a toss-up between them and LA for that division. So the loser of that will go to the wild card. I just don't know which one that's going to be yet.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That Bogaerts deal, man, he's gonna be 40 or 41 when that deal is up.
41.
11 years, 280, no opt-outs, and a full no trade clause. Good God. And here's the thing. His performance up to this point has definitely merited that, but that being that he is 30 now, I think it's crazy to sign more than a 10-year deal for that much money, personally. That's just nuts. But
yeah, I would see San Diego, cutting him similar to, or releasing him similar to what Anaheim did with Pujols when he was no longer useful toward the end of that 10-year deal.
Yeah. Still on the hook for that money, though. Fully guaranteed contracts.
Yep.
All right. And then let's move on to the Dodgers, who last year, incredibly, 111-51, first in the NL West, eliminated in the NLDS by the Padres 3-1. Incredibly, they increased their win total from 2021 by 5. from 106 to 111. I mean, damn.
What
Now
I would
again,
say though is that's not necessarily incredible when the Padres were awful and the Giants fell off the face of the planet.
yeah, it's true. Well, and when you could feast on the Rockies as
That's
heavily as they
worth at
did.
least 9 wins right there because you play the
Yeah.
Giants so dang much.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's something we're going to see. How is that going to change some of these win totals this year with that playing everybody and playing your own division less? Everybody's saying, I read an article about this, that they're saying the NL East teams are actually probably going to be hurt the worst by the schedule change because the Braves, Mets, and Phillies won't get to feast on the Nationals and the Marlins. I'm like, hold on a second. The Phillies rarely feast on the Marlins because the Marlins are that pesky pain in the ass team that likes to forget that it sucks and play really well against the good teams. So I very strongly disagree with that line of logic right there. But it definitely does suck that we won't get to feast on the Nationals as much because that should be a team worth feasting on yet again.
Didn't the Braves lose or the Mets lose part of the near the end? Didn't they just lose a full series against the Nationals?
Mm-hmm.
Probably, but after it was wrapped up, who cares?
Probably right after the Cubs swept the Mets. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah.
Anyway, depth chart looking for the Dodgers. Catcher Will Smith, who is probably going to be one of the All-Stars, I would think, this year, along with Austin Barnes. You have the great Frederick Freeman at first base, Chris Taylor at second, Max Muncy at third. That's weird to not say Justin Turner at third because he was there for so long. Gavin Lux at short. Outfield, you got some change here too. Miguel Vargas, Trace Thompson, and Mookie Betts. Cody Bellinger is gone to the Cubs. JD Martinez at DH. I actually do like the DH swap that the Dodgers and the Red Sox did. I think the Dodgers definitely pulled out the better one of the two of those. The starting pitching, Julio Urias, Clayton Kershaw. It's smart that they finally have Kershaw bumped down to 2 in the depth chart. He's not an ace anymore. Still a good pitcher, but not an ace. Gonsolin at 3, which I think is a good spot for him. Plus it breaks, you go right, left, right there. Along with Dustin May and Noah Syndergaard, who was able to take a strong end of the year last year into a nice contract, honestly. In the bullpen, you got Graterol will be closing along with Daniel Hudson, Alex Vesia, Yency Almonte, Shelby Miller, and Caleb Ferguson. Shelby Miller, you took a 17-loss season, turned you into Ender Inciarte and Dansby Swanson, and we got a World Series from Swanson. What a great trade. The only re-signing was Clayton Kershaw, 1 year, 20, which was a pay raise from last year. He only made $17 million last year, so good for Kershaw. Not a ton of moves. Shelby Miller is a low risk deal. 1 year, $1.5 million. They signed Jason Hayward to a minor league contract. Like I said, Syndergaard got a nice pay raise, $13 million for this year. And JD Martinez, 1 year, $10 million to be their DH. I really like that move, and I think he is a definite upgrade over Justin Turner at DH or third base. So I really like that move there. And some minor trades, nothing major there. Probably the biggest loss I would see on here, Craig Kimbrell being gone. That's a big loss for them. Turner, I don't think that's as big of a loss. Cody Bellinger, that could be a big loss.
Trey Turner's a huge loss.
I said Justin Turner. I didn't get to Trey yet, dude.
Oh, I thought you said Trey Turner. I'm sorry.
No, I said Justin. Hold your horses. I'll let you rip on that in a minute. Cody Bellinger, if he turns it around, yeah, it's a big loss, but based on the last 2 seasons, I'm not confident. And then Trevor Bauer, thank God that guy is gone. I fully do not expect anybody to ever re-sign Bauer. I think he is done and should be done. And the fact that the arbitrator lowered his suspension as far as he did is an absolute sham and a joke.
It's also not really much of a loss when you don't get anything out of him for a full season. So
and season plus.
Yeah.
And Kevin Pillar, I think that, that's a hit to the depth in their outfield as well. And then, Trey Turner, we'll talk about the elephant in the room, taking that mega contract with Philadelphia. I mean, we'll break that particular contract down in a month and a half when we get to the NL East finally. But, that's definitely a big loss at shortstop. I don't care how good Gavin Lux might be at this point in his career. He is not Trey Turner. and he is not going to be able to replace Trey Turner at this point in his career. Over the stretch of Turner's contract, will he perhaps be better by the end of that forever long deal? Maybe. He's younger. It's definitely a possibility. But that's definitely a big loss in the infield to swap Gavin Lux for Trey Turner.
Yeah, not even the infield, just the offense too. You lose speed, so you're losing some stolen bases. You're losing the offense. Yeah, Ronnie, whatever. But you're losing that speed. You're losing the bat, and you're losing the defense. I mean, that's huge for the Dodgers. The other thing that I think that you should keep an eye on this year is the young kid in the outfield, Miguel Vargas. I think he's going to be a stud. So,
yeah, I think swapping Vargas out for Cody Bellinger is definitely a plus for the Dodgers there. Ronnie's Turner shirt finally came in. I can imagine the manufacturers were probably trying to crank that out as quickly as possible. I would imagine there were a ton of orders for Trey Turner Philly shirts put in very quickly by the Phillies faithful. Of course, faithful being spelled with a PH.
I was going to make sure that they signed him before I did anything. I didn't want to get into a Correa situation.
Oh man, I cannot wait to rip the Mets apart in a month and a half for that. For our Todd and Logan and anybody else who's a Mets fan who decides to join the Jason and Andrew roast of the New York Mets when we do the NL East preview, strap in. It's not going to be pretty, folks. All right. So
I think Joe said he's going to be taking the night off for that one.
Hey man, if you want to, that's fine. That's fine. We potentially may have we at this point that we may have 6 or 7 people on for that episode. So yeah, if you feel the need to take a night off, Joe, I completely understand. Anyway, back to the Dodgers though. They're not going to hit 111 wins again. Absolutely not, especially not being able to feast on the Rockies as much. Will they break 100? I don't think they're going to break. I think they're going to hit 99. I think they're going to fall just short, but they're still going to take the NL West. That is my prediction. Yeah, what do you think, bud? You've been a little quiet.
You're on a roll there, bud. I mean, I would say, to me, the fact that they're losing, they lost Bellinger for whatever he can contribute. Hopefully he turns it around. You lose Andrew Heaney. You lose Justin Turner. You lose Trey Turner. This is going to be dicey, man. 95, maybe 96. I think that this division comes down to the final weekend with these two clubs, the Padres and Dodgers. I think I don't think they have nearly enough talent with the guys that they lost. They have too much unproven talent, I would say. Gavin Lux, whether JD wins that. JD is the better of the two DHs. We'll see. Kershaw again. You're like. He's finally number 2 on the depth chart, but Kershaw is Kershaw. He's still going to dominate. That's just what he does. But I would say 96, 97. Let's go around there.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty safe bet. What do you think, Jason?
113. No, I'm kidding. You don't lose the players that they lost and get 113 wins. Especially since you don't get to beat up on the rest of your division as much this next year. They're going to drop down. They're still going to win the division, I think. I'm still going to give them 100 wins. I'm going to give them the Dalmatians 101.
Of course you are. And Ronnie commented in, he thinks 97 wins for the Dodgers. All right. Ronnie, I'll put you down so that way, if you're right, you have some bragging rights at the end of the year. For what it's worth, beating the three of us. So, yeah, the NL West it's definitely going to be a fight between the top two dogs. I think there's no question about that. Dodgers and Padres. But the Diamondbacks are definitely improving. San Francisco is aging and definitely not improving. And the Rockies, Rockies will still be in the basement for a while. I think that's safe to say. But I think the big thing I want to look at in the NL West this year, I want to see how much the Diamondbacks are going to improve, because that's a team that is on the verge of getting ready to start making some noise with the postseason. Like I said earlier, I think they're going to be like. Now, I'm not going to say they're going to do a 2-year jump like the Mariners did from the year before to this past year. I don't think they're going to do quite that, but I do think the Diamondbacks are ready to start pushing for that third spot. So I know we're not at the NL East yet. I'm just curious, assuming that it's going to be, NL East 2-3 in the 2 of the wild cards, and then the Padres or loser of Padres Dodgers in the third wild card spot. Where do you think where do you think the NL West team is going to slot in the 1, 2, 3 spots for the wild card? I'm just genuinely curious what you guys think about that.
1 or 2.
Okay.
I'm torn because I think you really have the potential to see 2 NL East teams. So knowing that you have the 3 in there that are probably going to beat each other up, I think you may see. I'm going to go with the 2 seed, wild card 2 seed again for the Padres.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking too. NL East second place will probably be the first wild card again, and then the NL East second place or third place will probably be the third wild card again, similar to what we saw this season. Okay, just curious where you guys stood on that. All right, so that's our NL West preview. Do you guys have anything else you want to bring up before we sign off for the night?
I just think it's pretty hilarious how I believe it was either the Rockies GM or the Rockies owners over the past week were saying that the Rockies are going to be competitive. I'm trying to find the exact quote here.
Competitive. He said they were going to play 500 ball.
Yeah, 500. They're going to play 500 ball.
500.
No, you aren't.
That's wow.
500 in a shortened season, maybe.
Well, I mean, remember, marijuana is legal in Colorado for recreational use, so there may have been some of that before that announcement was made. Because
there must have been some of that before they signed KB.
Yeah, and that was, and it was the owners here. It looks like it was the Munforts predicting that they're going to play 500 ball.
500 ball with that pitching staff.
I mean, and no.
That's ridiculously optimistic. So not happening.
Optimistic, insane, same thing.
But let's humor them for a second. Let's say theoretically the Rockies play 500 ball. Are they also saying the entire division except maybe the Giants would be over 500? Because that's the only way on God's green earth that's going to happen. And I'm sorry, I don't really see that happening either. Well, yeah, I mean, the Diamondbacks will probably be a little over, but still, but damn, man, that's oof. That is a brutally bad prediction among brutally bad predictions I've heard from total homer predictions made before. But wow, 500 for the Rockies.
Yeah, that's ownership speak. I don't pay any attention to that shit.
Well, of course you don't. You're a Cubs fan. You know better than to listen to the owners. Apparently, Rockies fans have not yet seen the light and learned that trick yet. Oh, man. 500 for the Rockies. Jason, that might be the funniest thing anybody's said all night. Well done. Well done.
Glad to help.
All right, guys, you can find the audio recordings on all major platforms: Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast are our primary ones. You'll see us. You can see us live on the YouTube channel, on Facebook Live, as well as on Twitter. Find our merchandise at redbubble.com/people/DDAB-podcast. Follow us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer, on the Twitter page at DDAB_podcast. All three of us are on Twitter. I'm at PyroLord314. Jason's at JRicker300. Joe's at JoldenJoe35. We are presented by Dark Arrow Podcast, LLC. We are sponsored by the phenomenal Whiskey and Blade Barbershop, which I need to get back to as my beard is getting out of control. Guys, may your dog always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. Have a great night. We'll see you in 2 weeks for the AL Central.